1732 the day before. Boost, 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 moving up and down again. There's no discharge in the war. Don't look at what's in front of you. Boost, 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 moving up and down again.
The 1916 Easter Rising was an armed insurrection against the vast shadow of the British Empire on Easter Monday, April 24th, with Britain's gaze fixed firmly on the slaughter fields of the Great War. Padraig Pearse rose onto the steps of the GPO and declared a republic. What followed was open rebellion, an eruption of resistance, sacrifice, and the cry to be Gaelic and free. The rebellion faltered, but its sacrifice bled new life into this nation. Pearse and his comrades were executed, yet their heroism was the spark that led to a republic. But the Rising was not born in isolation. The heroic tradition of Ireland stretches back millennia after millennia. Stories of heroes and martyrs, of rebels and kings, ring across every valley from Malin to Missin. Beneath the thunder of those sons of Ireland runs another current, quieter but no less powerful. The maternal force that carried Ireland forward. From Grania Whale, Queen Maeve, to the mothers, fighters and messengers of 1916. Their courage shaped a nation. These are their voices. Among all the heroes of 16, none is more a household figure than the Countess. With a name not so typical, she stands out alone. But what makes her actions echo throughout Irish history is the story of her commitment to the national cause. For she was not one of the paupers residing in Dublin's tenements, nor was she a resentful Catholic, fearing conscription for her male relatives by the British Army during the Great War. In fact, she was quite the opposite. Countess Markievicz, by the name of Georgina, was born in the lap of luxury in London to a Protestant ascendancy family. Her father, Sir Henry Gore Booth, was an Arctic explorer. Not only that, but he was a wealthy owner of confiscated land in Lissadale Estate, County Sligo, in which she was brought up. Georgina and her sister Eva were presented before Queen Victoria at Buckingham Palace for the Jubilee's 50th anniversary in 1887. It is clear from a young age that the Countess would not be fit for the coat of royalty, as she always had an acute awareness of class difference. This is a trait she inherited from her father, who was known for keeping positive relations with his tenants. Known for her creativity, as a young adult she moved to Paris to study art despite protests from her family. It is here she met the Polish-Russian artist and Count Kazimierz Markievicz, whose family held land in Ukraine, marrying him at the turn of the century. Gallivanting between Paris and Kiev, they finally set themselves up in Dublin in 1901. Without a second wasted, both became actively involved in the social scene in Dublin, known for its thriving literary and political landscape. Energised with the political milieu at the time, Markievicz made many steps towards furthering independent Irish organisations, the groundworks for a free Ireland. In 1908, as rebellion began to brew in the shadow of the Dublin mine, she joined both Sinn Féin and Inini na hÉireann. Ban na hÉireann, the first major women's nationalist journal, also benefited from her contributions. Markievicz's home on Leinster Road was rarely quiet. Artists, rebels, and dreamers drifted in and out, turning it into a lively refuge. So constant was the flow of guests that she didn't know who was under her roof until she sat down for breakfast. With a laser focus on nationalism, she founded Fianna Éireann, a Republican youth organisation that taught firearms training. Climbing the ranks to an executive member of Sinn Féin coincided with her first arrest when protesting King George V's visit to Dublin. Markievicz threw herself into socialism and trade unionism, first speaking in 1911 at a Women's Workers' Party union meeting and never looking back. In the harsh days of the 1913 lockout, Markievicz ladled soup for starving families in Liberty Hall and the slums. Among the queues of tired workers and hungry children, she became known simply as Madame, a name spoken with admiration. By 1915, she was helping to found the Irish Workers' Cooperative Society, all while drilling with the Citizen Army and guiding the seeds of the Republican youth. Fiercely loyal to her feminist ideals, she moved in a circle of women friends who shared her cause. Constance Markievicz, summoning the warrior spirit of Queen Maeve herself, developed into a prominent leader of the Rising. A suffragette and socialist, she joined James Connolly's Irish Citizen Army and rose to the rank of staff lieutenant, giving her command, authority, and arms. Though meant to travel between outposts in her comrade Dr. Kathleen's car, she chose instead to stay at St. Stephen's Green beside Michael Mallon. There, as second in command, fearing not Tiernan Og nor death, she led Citizen Army fires to a martyr's stand. When British forces seized the buildings around the park, the Green became a death trap, forcing the rebels to retreat into the College of Surgeons. She was the first woman to be sentenced to death, something she feared not. Ultimately, it didn't come to pass, for the savage acts of the Germans executing a British nurse in the Great War put the death penalty for women in bad taste. In 1918, Markievicz made history as the first woman elected to the British House of Commons, but she refused to bow to any Anglo Parliament. Instead, she joined the First Dáil Éireann in 1919, becoming Ireland's Minister for Labour and the first female cabinet minister in Europe. Nearly a decade later, she returned to politics, winning a seat in the 5th Dáil in 1927. But her victory was short-lived. That summer, she fell ill and was cared for by her friend Dr. Kathleen Lynn, but died in Sir Padraig Dunn's Hospital on the 15th of July 1927.
A Larkinite rebel to her core, she chose to die in the pauper's ward as she succumbed to appendicitis.
Margaret Skinnider, a Scottish schoolteacher, crossed the sea to Ireland with fire in her heart and a single mission: to learn about the revolution. Dublin in 1915 was a revelation. Streets alive with whispers of rebellion. The Irish Citizen Army calling to her like a republic of yore. In Glasgow, she had been a part of Cumann na mBan, trained only in British home defence camps. But now she was stepping into a world where ordinary citizens armed themselves for history. Despite her mother's protest, Margaret returned to Ireland for Easter 1916, taking leave from her Scottish teaching job. She was plunged straight into the action, escorting James Connolly's family from Belfast to Dublin, gathering hidden explosives and carrying messages through the city. On Sunday evening, she joined the hundreds mobilising at Liberty Hall. As a scout, she pedalled through Dublin on Monday morning, tracking troop movements from the barracks. Her role may have seemed passive, Bushy rode under fire more than many Irish Citizen Army fires, delivering vital dispatches while bullets whizzed past her head. At first, Margaret rode through Dublin as a seemingly harmless civilian girl, ferrying messages between outposts. But the streets grew deadly. Sniper fire from the Shelburne Hotel forced her to zigzag with every turn. Margaret took her positions under the command of Michael Nolan and Countess Markievicz at the Royal College of Surgeons. On Tuesday night, she donned her ICA uniform and climbed to the roof of the college. For the first time, she fired her rifle at another human. Her British military training and the days of the ICA youth had prepared her well. More than once, her sights found their mark and figures crumbled under her aim. The school teacher had become a deadly sniper. With her book, Doing My Bit for Ireland, Margaret became the first woman to publish about the Rising. Regarding her sniper exchanges, she wrote, "I slipped into this uniform, climbed up astride the rafters, and was assigned a loophole through which to shoot. I could look across the tops of the trees and see the British soldiers standing on the roof of the Shelburne. I could also hear their shoots hailing against the roof and wall of our fortress, for in truth, this building was just that. More than once, I saw the man I aimed at fall." By Wednesday, the college was under relentless fire, bullets smashing windows as Margaret hugged the stone walls. Eager for action, she convinced Commandant Nolan to let her bomb the Shelburne. On her first sortie at the Russell Hotel, an accidental shot exposed them. Bullets tore through the air, and Margaret was hit. She refused hospital care and was treated inside the college, revealing 3 bullets in her left side. Isolated, the rebels listened to distant cannon fire, imagining German warships striking the British. Margaret was eventually taken to St. Vincent's Hospital, spending 2 weeks in a sterile room before finally writing home to assure her mother she had survived. Using her accent to her advantage, Margaret secured a permit at Dublin Castle and returned to Scotland. She stayed only briefly, and by August she was back in Dublin. However, sensing government agents on her trail, she set sail for Ellis Island. Across the US, she campaigned for Irish independence, travelling with Kathleen Lynn, raising funds and working with Cumann na mBan. Later, when the Civil War erupted, she took the anti-treaty side, continuing her lifelong fight for Ireland. Margaret's name is now sung in chorus alongside the heroes of Ireland, stretching back millennia.
Her voice and action for Irish republicanism, for the suffragette movement, and for labour rights
echoed the valour of our great past. Kathleen Lynn was born in Killala, County Mayo, the daughter of a Church of Ireland clergyman. Brilliant and disciplined, she studied medicine at what is now University College Dublin, yet doors closed to her. Adelaide Hospital refused her simply for being a woman. Unbridled, she secured post at the Rotunda amongst others, while running her own practice from 9 Belgrave Road, Rathmines. In time, she would be remembered as one of Ireland's great pioneers of children's health and welfare. Her political awakening came in 1913 when Countess Markievicz asked her to treat Helena Maloney. Maloney, already immersed in radical politics, convalesced in Lynn's home in Rathmines. There, late-night conversations with Maloney and Markievicz drew Lynn into the currents of suffrage, labour and nationalism. "We used to have long talks," she later recalled in her journal. "She converted me to the national movement." In 1913, Kathleen Lynn stood shoulder to shoulder with Markievicz and Maloney during the Dublin lockout, tending to the strikers and forging her lifelong friendship with James Connolly. Soon after, she joined the Irish Citizen Army. At Connolly's request, she trained its men and women and members of Connolly in first aid, preparing them for the conflict she knew was coming. In the tense days before Easter week, she used her own car to ferry guns through Dublin streets, slipping past the eyes of authority. On Easter Monday 1916, Lynn, serving as Chief Medical Officer, reported to City Hall under Sean Connolly's command. That afternoon, she watched in horror as Connolly himself was struck down by a sniper's bullet from Dublin Castle. First aid was useless, she later wrote. He died almost immediately. By twilight, City Hall had fallen to British troops. Lynn was arrested and moved between Ship Street, Richmond Barracks, Mountjoy and Kilmainham. In June, she was deported to England, not to prison, but to work under a doctor near Bath. She returned briefly that summer to nurse her ailing sister, then re-established her practice at Rathmines by the year's end. Her politics remained as fierce as her medicine. Many of her Protestant middle-class friends could not understand her loyalty to the Rising, but she pressed on. In 1917, she was elected Vice President of Sinn Féin. In 1923, she won a seat as TD for Dublin, though, like other Republicans, she refused to sit in on the Dáil, as she had taken the anti-treaty side regarding the Anglo-Irish Treaty. Her lasting offering to Éirú was St Ultan's Hospital for Infants, which she co-founded in 1919 with her partner Madeleine French Mullen. The first of its kind, it gave desperately needed medical care and education to Dublin's poorest mothers and children. Lynn dedicated decades to its work, marking her as much a pioneer in public health as in politics. When she died in September 1955, Dublin honoured her with a military funeral. She was laid to rest in Dean's Grange Cemetery.
Remembered as a revolutionary, a doctor and a suffrage woman who stood alongside the glory and the heroism of the very annals themselves.
As rebellion rang around the collective consciousness of the Irish people, none was electrified with its call to freedom more than young Lily Kempson. Born south of the Dublin Mountains, Lily grew up in an impoverished Catholic family, moving to a tenement in Golden Lane, Dublin City, as she was a child. In life's young spring, at the age of 14, Lily got a job in Jacob's biscuit factory. Disgusted with the harsh child labour conditions and armed with the protection of trade unionism, she participated in Dublin's 1913 lockout by striking at Jacob's biscuit factory at the age of 17. Upon her arrest at Mountjoy jail, she pulled the wool over the eyes of the authorities by giving a false age in order to avoid a reform school.
We were all locked out. We were locked out of Jacobs. Everything shut down. And I went to ticket at the Jacobs factory. Yeah. And I tried to get the girl to come out with me. And the police said to leave them alone. Well, I wasn't touching them. I just started to come out on our side. I got one girl to come with me, but the one didn't come. And the police said to go away and leave them alone. I said, I'm not touching them. And with that, he picked me up and put me in the car. And I got sent to jail.
Working from Liberty Hall, Lily stayed a fierce Labour activist. In 1914, she moved to Belfast to live with James Connolly and swear allegiance to the Irish Republic. Though poor, she and 5 fellow oath-takers scrapped together enough for a tiny negative photograph, a small, lasting mark of that sacred day. When the Easter Rising erupted on April the 24th, 1916, Lily joined the St. Stephen's Green garrison under Commandant Michael Mallon and Countess Markievicz, an old ally from Liberty Hall under the Irish Citizen Army. Armed with a revolver, she commandeered a pastry cart seized from a Jacobs worker making his rounds through the park. As the distant sound of British boots marching filled the gaps in the air, Lily lifted her pistol with a steady and calm hand. It was pointing at a citizen army soldier attempting to desert. "I want to go home," he pleaded. "You can't," she affirmed. "We're all away from home now." Lily ran dispatches through the chaos to the General Post Office, its columns still pocketed with British bullets. Serving as a courier for the great Irish nationalist Padraig Pearse during the week-long siege of the Rising, she aided in the seizing of the Royal College of Surgeons, later telling her daughter that she and 7 others took a knife to a portrait of Queen Victoria within the college. Lily told her family she slipped free of capture, caught in the last rush of a message, just as the rebels' surrender swept through the streets. After the Rising, Lily dared not return home, fearing the neighbours' eyes. She slipped into Carmelite Church, where she had her first communion, and hid in the confession box. "All night I sat there," she recalled. "Then in the morning, you step out and join the people at Mass." She later borrowed her sister's passport, slipped away to Liverpool, and boarded the Philadelphia bound for America. On July the 9th, 1916, she arrived at Ellis Island and took a train west towards Seattle, where her uncle worked on the docks. A quiet new world waiting to begin. In October 1916, she met Matthew McInerney from County Down and married him shortly after. Lily became the longest surviving participant in the Easter Rising, and the only on this list that had a working class background. She passed away at the age of 99, leaving behind 116 great-grandchildren at the time of her death.
And one of her great-great-grandchildren, well, it's not me, but I'm close. Lily Kempson is my grandfather's auntie, or my great-great-auntie.
Christ, I feel like an American trying to explain their heritage.
She used my great-grandmother's passport, Jane Kempson Daly, to escape to North America.
It's a long way to Tipperary. It's a long
I recall the tales of the Irish heroes, not from spite nor resentment, but to shine light on the shadowed names lying on the heroes column of Irish martyrdom. From the Countess to Skinnider, these women personify an ancient tradition embodying the maternal power that has driven Ireland forward for millennia upon millennia, stretching back to the line of druidesses themselves.